this is my official Arcos project for the semester. I also worked on it during the summer. And it relies on basically coming up with a lab sort of tutorial for using the TI-MSP 430 Launchpad. And the TI-MSP 430 Launchpad is a TI board that costs $4.30 and has most of the features that one of the lower priced Arduinos has. The advantage is that it's significantly less expensive. And it can be used for many simple robotics or embedded type projects in an academic setting particularly. And the code that I've been developing for these tutorials use Energia, which is a port of the Arduino language. And it translates as much Arduino functionality as possible to the MSP 430, which basically means that they even go so far as to remap pin numbers so that if you have an Arduino shield, it will more or less be pin compatible with the TI Launchpad. And it makes it a lot more user-friendly and can compete a lot more equally with the Arduino since you now have an existing code base that you can run pretty easily on. And so yeah, about that Kickstarter I've been talking about with the programmable intelligent LED board. It's now up. I put it up at 250 today. And apparently there are 4 backers, which is good. There hasn't been any sort of like advertising yet to tell anyone that it's up.
Went down to 0.
Wait, what? That's interesting. Okay. Wait, what? That's really interesting. Okay then. I'm not sure what it's doing, but it is actually 4 backers. So yeah, hopefully that will increase substantially with more advertising. Because right now no one knows about it. I put it live and a couple people discovered it on their own. Now, so for the rest of what I've been doing this semester is something that, and this is Tim's name for it, I was going to call it yet another RPI study group. But it's the continuous unrouted sharing and anonymous interaction for RPI. Basically, it's a completely peer-to-peer file sharing sort of network. And it's based on Freenet, which is doesn't use any sort of central server. It's encrypted and does onion routing. So basically, it's extremely difficult to determine who's requesting a file or where the file's coming from. And it's currently used in China and the Middle East to distribute censored information. And obviously, it's open source. So this is basically a completely peer-to-peer file sharing system that eliminates the need for a tracker or any sort of server to basically get where the nodes are. So there's really no way to remove or censor any material once it's added to the network. In fact, the only way to remove a file from it is to basically not access it for a long enough period of time that every node will have removed it. So it works with 2 components. The client, which would run on every node, and it acts as a proxy for network traffic. And a given file is transferred in many small parts that go through different routes in the network. And at any point, it's not easy to determine the source, destination, or the content since it's all encrypted. And on a given node, your cache is also encrypted, so you have no idea what's stored in the cache on your computer. And it's done that way so that you can't be held responsible for whatever content's coming from your computer since you have no way of knowing what's actually there. And the authentication server, which is something I came up with, allows for a list of trusted nodes to be compiled. So basically what this means is you could have it require an RPI email address to get on that trusted node list. But once you're on the list, it has no identifying information. So basically it would be a sort of handshake with the server where you put in your email address, it sends you an email. Once you've confirmed your email address, it has no record of your email anymore. And this would allow the node reference code, which is essentially a connection details, to be given to someone trying to connect to the network much quicker. So rather than having to discover other nodes, which does work, it would allow you to virtually instantly be able to connect to other peers. So on Corsair, which is what this is being called, it's going to basically be a file directory and download manager with some search functions for files and pages, as well as obviously a simple file uploader, a forum, and a real-time anonymous chat. And most of these features are things that are already available in Freenet. I'm more or less just repackaging them in a way that would make it more user-friendly. And to break it, you really can't. Basically, as long as there's one node existent, the entire network will re-replicate if you install the software on other computers. So even if you take down the central authentication server, everything's still going to work. It might take longer to detect new nodes, but it doesn't compromise the integrity of the network. And you can't remove a specific file, which is by design. So there's no way to censor any information, no way to remove an infringing file if there was such a thing. The only way for a file to get removed is if it isn't touched well.
If the authentication server is just taken down, it'll take longer to connect. But if it's compromised and what's running on there is changed, would it be possible to record the email addresses of people registering?
Theoretically, but you could put your email address in anywhere. But by putting your email address in, that doesn't have any indication of what content you're going to be sharing.
Mm-hmm. Merely that you
in and
are
of itself, the software is completely fine. Theoretically, you could use it for sharing illegal files. Mm-hmm. So using the software doesn't imply that you're transferring illegal files. Mm-hmm. Same way you can use torrent software, but torrenting illegal things is illegal. So yeah, theoretically you could run compromised software on that server, then when people try to register, it could do nothing or just collect their email addresses. Which I guess is somewhat of a security vulnerability, but not really since it doesn't tie you to any infringing files. Yeah, all you need is one node with the cache to recreate the entire site, and 3 nodes are needed to perform anonymous routing. That's by design of Freenet. That theoretically could be changed, but you kind of want the files to be going through different routes in the network, so you have some sort of... So it's difficult to detect where the files are coming from or going to. So I'm hoping to get a beta out, get a couple test nodes set up on campus, and start working on UI work on this by the end of the semester. And then eventually, hopefully, a wider beta on campus with a larger group of testers. This is something that doesn't just apply to RPI. It's really a general purpose file sharing thing. However, it's tailored to a more restrictive network than Freenet, which is designed for use worldwide. So,
so is this going to be restricted to the RPI subnet, or is it going to be...
That, for automatic detection of nodes, will be restricted to the RPI subnet. However, if you're outside of RPI's campus, you can connect to a node from the trusted list, which you will then have access to all the peers connected to that node. So you'd be able to get into the network by connecting to a node that you know the reference code for, basically, who's already inside the network.
And how do you do like the first peer problem? Like when you just have a node of the peers, how do you find your first peer? Are you just brute forcing it, or you
it occasionally sends out multicast packets and waits for a while, which is why it can take a ridiculously long time to get that first connection. I know if you start Freenet and just set it up on a computer, let it sit for a while, within about 10 or 15 minutes you'll have a node, and generally that node will have a bunch of nodes attached to it, so you'll actually have a list of like 30 or 40 nodes. And from there you have enough that you can reliably start transferring data. By restricting it to a local network, though, that'll go much faster, because ideally you'll have a lot more nodes within a smaller address space. Any other questions?